Hello and welcome to Holistic Flow. I'm your host, Julie Francis. I'm an astrologer, coach, and founder of Wild Radiance Collective. Today, I am joined by Jaye Anne Beringer, who is the owner of Jaye Anne Healing and an energy healer who helps people actually be themselves through reconnecting with the divine feminine and rewriting limiting programs through deep, targeted energy healing. Thank you so much for being here with me today.
Hello, thank you for having me. This is so wonderful to be here.
I'm really excited to chat and learn about your work and what kind of transformation you bring your clients. So let's start though with tell us more about yourself and how you came into the work that you do.
Yeah, so I grew up like super way Christian, right? And so there was some cultural concepts that was like you have to be a certain type of way and you have to do these things. And one of those things that kind of came up in my mind and in my subconscious belief system that I had to rewrite was you have to have like 6 kids, you have to homeschool them all and breastfeed everybody and just like don't be like give everything away, right? Like just do everything for everybody else. So I started on my journey and I had 2 kids in 2 years. And at the end of the second pregnancy, I was like, this is not going well. And I was very uncomfortable. My everything hurt. And then I had the baby and I was like, you and me body, we got to figure this out. And what I realized was that, yes, I had a food component. I shifted my food and it was a big deal. But the biggest thing that changed for me was I magically found this amazing person who helped me rewrite my internal programming and my belief system and like be okay that like I'm not going to die if I take care of myself, that I'm not going to like I'm not going my there was this like you're not good enough if you take care of yourself or if you put yourself first or if you go to the bathroom alone or if you take a shower, those kinds of things. It was like, you have to give and give and give and give. It's required. And if you don't, then you're going to hell, basically. So there was like this very strange dichotomy. So I spent a lot of time reprogramming that and learning how to actually take care of myself and what my body's needs were going to look different than what pop culture told me I should look for too. And that was a big rewrite as well. So that changed everything. I was working in one type of industry and I have always been very focused on mindset and healing the body mind, right? I read a beautiful book called Your Body is Your Subconscious Mind. And it was like, oh, your body is telling you exactly what it needs to be rewritten because the body has the wisdom. So that's how I got here. That
That
was 2011, 2012. And that was like the thing that happened. But yeah, so that was what, geez, that was like 14 years ago.
I know. I feel the same way when I start talking about certain things in my life. And then the fact that I can say things like 20 years ago now
Hmm.
or like 25 years ago, I'm like, oh my gosh, like time is incredible. And these pivotal points in our lives, they still feel like they often just happened yesterday. So when we
Yeah.
really put a number on them, it's like, whoa. And then I don't know if this happens to you, but for me, in those pivotal moments in our life that created so much transformation and propelled us forward on a journey, um, like you just feel like what like what happened here and how did I get here? And at the same time, you're like, holy cow! It's like you remember that moment, you see it on a timeline, and it's like this fast forward to where you are, and it's like you've relived everything in that moment when I recount it, and then you stop and you think, and you're like, and I was actually just talking with somebody the other day. Actually, it was Matt Stein. That you feel like you could never be that person again.
Yeah.
You're like, it's almost like it's like a different timeline at this point when you think back on it.
Yeah.
So I thought I actually used the the idea of this timeline jump, which I thought was a really great analogy and really suited this moment in what you were talking about as well. Like these transformative shifts that happen. And becoming a parent, or a mother, depending on the experience that you have, they're both super profound moments in our lives. And I'd love to hear more, like how did you start to create that shift for you in your own life? Like when you recognized this was all happening and you were like, okay, this is happening. Like what was the first thing you did? Or was yeah, let's start there.
The first thing I did was admit, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to do this. This is too much. That always has to be the first step, because once you think you know, you don't, you're skipping over a really important piece.
Yeah.
A really important piece, because when you don't know, then you're inviting in new information. When you think you know everything, you're blocking it out, anything new that could come up to help you. And it's especially in these moments when it's like really pivotal stuff. Really, I want to make a big change. I have to make a big acceptance of I don't know. And I have to step into the fear of I don't. So that was the first thing. And that was my first thing. It was, I don't know. I feel horrible. I don't know how to feel better. I don't know what needs to change, but something needs to change. And that's when magic happens too. Within a couple of weeks, there was the person who helped me through showed up at the very chiropractic office I was visiting, and not feeling any different, not getting any results. I was just like going through the motions of crack, go home, come back. And it was not really doing anything. And I still had back pain. I still had hip pain. I still had everything. Just like it felt like somebody was scratching the inside of my skin all the time. It was like this very low level but manageable pain just consistently. And I
Yeah.
could not figure out what was going on. And I just went, I have no idea. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. And magically, this woman shows up at my chiropractic office and starts working there. And she's using techniques I've never seen anywhere before in any modality, not in therapy, not in chiropractic, not in anything. And it changed everything for me. But if I had kept on going, pretending like I know, I wouldn't be here today.
Yeah. That is one of the hardest things to do, admitting that we don't know. And then when you opened yourself to being like, I don't know what the answer, and you didn't force anything, this person with the exact medicine you need showed up right in the moment. And I think those kind of serendipitous moments are absolutely amazing. They just are so reaffirming. Like we're like, okay, there are good things in this life. There are hopeful things. There are these magical moments, and we need those. And we can go through such long periods of time without them, that not having that reassurance can feel really blah without a better way to describe it. I just, yeah, those are really hard. So have you been able to kind of move away from that chronic pain? Are you kind of feeling
Oh
more?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It took, I would say all in, it took 2 years. But in the first 6 months, every week I was feeling a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. I was sleeping through the night. Like I was one of the problems with chronic pain is that I think you wake up and you're just thinking. But you're just thinking. That's the pain telling you that you're in pain. Then you don't know it, or that there's a toxic issue going on. But it's this obsessive thinking in the middle of the night it was part of that for me. And I would once I started clearing out a lot of the inflammation on the physical side, and also not creating emotional inflammation is kind of what I call that, then I was able to sleep through the night without a problem. But before that, oh my gosh, I was like, I would wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, everyone's asleep. And if you have a 1 and a 2-year-old, or a newborn and a 1-year-old, sleep is important, and you sleep when they're sleeping, especially at night. But if I'm waking up at 2 a.m. and they're not awake, that's a problem. And then I wake up and I'm staying awake, and then they wake up at 5, and now we're up for the day. Like, that's going to create a lot of rage too.
Yeah.
So it all was sort of snowballing on itself. And once I started to unwind that snowball, it just snowballed the other way. It was a snowball of healing, which was really, really cool.
Ah, I like that. I like that description. Is that what encouraged you or like and motivated you to write this book? Can you tell us more about the book?
Yes, I don't remember telling you I'm writing a book, but I am writing a book.
Oh, I thought you said at the beginning that you were writing a book. I swear you did.
No, that's so fun. No, I thought it. I was like, oh shoot, I should talk about the book. This
Oh
is
my, okay.
wild.
So
You must have read my mind.
that's really, it's possible. That's, wow, that hasn't happened for a really long time. It's definitely never happened on a recording. Okay,
That
so
was
tell,
so
yeah, so
cool.
very cool. tell us, tell us more because I'm obviously dialed in and eager to hear.
Yeah, it's called The Last Self-Care Book You'll Ever Need. And it goes in, and it's just beyond baths and haircuts and all of that superficial self-care stuff, which is good if it's nourishing for you. But there's always more. There's always more. And we go into not only the reasons why we deny ourselves self care, right? We're going to get started in the very beginning of the book. We get started with mindset. We get started with understanding. And I hate that word mindset because it sounds like I need to force my mind to do something else, but it's just internal programming. And most of internal reprogramming is like addressing emotions that you thought you had dealt with, but you hadn't, or twisted energetic patterns that really are just like beliefs that other people put onto us, right? And so that's all emotional reprogramming is. That's what mindset is. And so in the book, I explain why we need to do that first before we go, oh, I'm going to take a bath, because a bath isn't going to fix it. A bath is going to give you relief in the moment. You need long term stuff. And then I talk about the internal accountant. Yes. The internal accountant is the part of us, and in this time of my life I saw this version of me. It was the male version part of me that very clearly, and he was this disheveled kind of guy, and he looked like he had been well dressed when he got dressed, and that he probably got dressed 6 years ago and hasn't slept since. And so his clothes are tattered, but they're very nice clothes. He's got a long list of all these things that he's keeping track of. And the internal accountant keeps track of every single thing that you deem important, right? I'm talking nutritional balance, checks and balances, right? Am I getting the right amount of this in and out? Am I getting the right amount of money in and out, right? There's that piece in there. How am I doing on my relationship balances? Am I going out and giving to more than I am receiving, right? And so he takes care of all of that and then balances it against what you need in reality. But we oftentimes delegate stuff to our internal accountant that is like junk that we don't need to, like little tit for tat things that we can start to let go of once we start to notice that they're even there. Once we delegate something to the internal accountant, this guy is on it. He is like, we got to get this done. We got to get this done. We got to get this done. And so that's that little part of you inside is a like, ting, 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 ting. You're not good enough. You're not good enough because you're not meeting these quotas that you've set aside for yourself secretly. You don't even know about. And this other part of you is pushing your adrenaline button saying, this is really important. If you never look at that list, you're going to be wasting your adrenaline on stuff that you have delegated to say was important a very long time ago, and it's not important anymore. And now it's time to go through and just take out line items and say, no, you don't have to worry about this anymore. You don't have to worry about this anymore. This is not your job anymore. I'm not worried about this anymore. And you just take stuff off of this part of you's plate. You're going to feel so much better.
I think that is such a perfect description. I love anything that brings a visual, and I am working on that exact type of thing right now, as many people are, given the current astrology with the nodes and stuff. And naming it the internal accountant is phenomenal, and I am just loving that description right now because I will just put it down in my pad on my digital planner. And what I've started doing is anytime I think something's important or I know it needs to be done, I'll jot it down. I stopped assigning due dates to it
Yeah.
because I found once I wrote it down and it was out of my mind, that was enough. I could review the list. The list isn't super big or anything, but it does fluctuate. And now what I do is I review it quite often, sometimes a few times a week, sometimes every day. It depends on what's going on. And what I find is that I can just delete a lot of them. Just like, okay, this situation has changed, or this is no longer relevant, or so the fact that I feel like I'm kind of actively doing what you just described is really cool. And so this is a part of your book, this
Yes.
description of.
Yes. It's actually a very key part of the book is now we're going to work with the internal account. How do you get stuff off of his list or her list, however you gender that part of you? How do you get those things off of that list? Because sometimes there's a fight. Sometimes it's like, no, this is really important. And you have to talk to the other parts of you that are like, no, this is really important. You have to work with other pieces of things and go in and why do we feel like this is really important? And within that context, they're more than just an internal accountant. You really have like an entire town living inside of you with different internal delegation tasks. And they sort of collaborate. And so if you try to take something, the conscious mind, which is 5% of our awareness, versus the subconscious and unconscious, which is 95% of our awareness, they all live in that 95%. They've been running things for a long time. When we become conscious, our job is not to focus on making things happen with our conscious mind because that's really inefficient. We're always going to go back to the old ways unless we deal with this unconscious and subconscious stuff. And so the value and the purpose of the consciousness and the awareness is to go and make it more efficient, right? It's like if you became the CEO of a Fortune 500 company and you found you go and you find fraud inside your company, you got to go deal with that, and you didn't know about it. It's still your responsibility. But you're not going to go and try to be the janitor and try to be every single job role all by yourself. Like, you cannot do that. Your job as the 5% consciousness is to make the biggest bang for the buck on your action steps. And the first thing you're going to need to do is rewrite the subconscious programming from parents, cultural, random stuff you picked up. Like, all that stuff doesn't need to be in there. It just doesn't need to be there. So I hope I answered your question because now I forgot what it was. That's how this goes.
I feel very fulfilled by what you answered, and I can't actually pinpoint exactly what I think. We were just talking about the book, and it was great, and it flowed so
that's
well.
what else is in the book is how do I do it? How do I even take this action step? Because there may be times where I want to take a line item off, like, this is dumb. Like, why am I still mad about this? I'll give you an example. And grief is the biggest thing that we get stuck in our bodies because of the way Westernization works is that we pretend like grief doesn't exist. And we need to grieve like a lot of things. It's not just like people and loss of that. And I'll give you an example. Hold on. That was weird. There we go. That was super weird. It was like my heart was racing and my stomach was all up inside of itself. That's not
Something
happened to me in a long
energetic
time.
shifting,
Yeah.
maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was 5 years old, a little boy broke my pencil, and I held on to that grief about that pencil for 20 years. Okay. It was that grief lived inside of my adrenal glands. And the minute that I removed that grief and processed that grief and cleared it out, I slept for 14 hours and then I stopped overreacting to stuff. Little tiny things can impact us in big ways. So it's not about how big was it, it's the fact that we can't process grief at all. And some of these things, when we're holding on to those line items and saying I can't let go of this, like it makes logical sense to let go of something that happened 20 years ago as small as breaking a pencil. It makes logical sense. But that's not what we're dealing with here. The body is not logical really in that way. The subconscious is not logical in that way, and our emotions are definitely not logical. So we need to find the way that fulfills the need that is there. And that's the work, right? Like that's the work. It's a fun journey for me, for lots of people. But that's the thing to work with. So yeah, that's what the book's about, is like dealing with those deeper things on a really powerful level. And we talk about like, how did we get here? Why does this happen? And also in the context of Westernization and why that created such a disparity and how much divisiveness that's created for individuals and for the intention and the desire of community, and why that impacts us on our subconscious programming. It's a fun book.
Yeah, it sounds fascinating, and it's really timely. It's exactly the kind of things we need to be talking about and learning about. And so you're creating this offering of this book. Like, how are the other ways that you like to work with your clients to help them achieve these things? Like, what kind of services do you offer?
Yeah, so I do energy work. That is the primary method that I do it, and I do like a modified version of what happened, what I worked with when I went through this process, because it makes so much sense to me. But I also use a lot of new things that come in, and then um I'm I was on a week-long retreat a couple weeks ago for learning a new modality, and that one has like really shifted my whole life upside down. So by the time this podcast airs, even if it's like next week, I could probably have a totally different perspective on what I'm offering. But one-to-one sessions are always available. And I have pre-recorded courses. That's the biggest thing, is I want people to get as much healing as possible with as little like stress as possible, and with not as much expense, because I think a lot of these like mindset things, oh, you got to go to this exotic location and do all these crazy things, and let's laugh for 6 hours, let's cry for 6 hours, and then we're all just going to be quiet. And that sounds to me like a lot of money, b a lot of work, and c, that sounds exhausting. So I created a program. It's a membership where basically you would have pre-recorded sessions that you just listen to, sort of like a podcast, and then you get the healing inside of that. Inside of that, it's all imbued into the actual recording. And when I record, it doesn't matter if it's, somebody's going to watch that day live, or 10 years from the time I record. I'm looking at, when I'm doing the healing work, I'm looking at a group of people, a basket of people who all need this, right? And so if you feel like, oh, I don't know why I need to work with you, but I need to work with you, you're probably being called by one of those sessions to come and work in that, listen to that session. So, and I do 2 of them live a month, because I love it when people come live. It just adds a lot of energy, and then they can ask questions afterwards that I don't record. So I have a membership with that, and it has a ton of stuff in there too.
I love it when people come live too. Working with people live on any level, whether I'm the person that's the client or I'm helping one of my own clients, it just changes everything. I think, for functionality in our world today, and having replays and things like that is amazing. And so people can do things on their own time, or for people that maybe need just um, something a little softer where they don't want to attend live, because I do have a lot of clients like that, where if they do come live, they're like, it's a really big deal that I'm here live and I'm just going to hang out in the back. And like, that's
Mm-hmm.
great and that's cool, and the fact that they're there is amazing. And then also sometimes they opt in for the recording of something, which I totally understand. And that's what's so important about the work that we do and the way that we offer it in our businesses, is that we're meeting people where they're at, and we're allowing them to care for themselves in a way that feels fulfilling for them, without pressure, without expectations, and just a lot of compassion. And I think that's exactly what you're doing with what you've got too. It's just really beautiful. So I'm just looking here at your note. So the courses you're talking about are the courses we discussed earlier, right? Just so I have that correct.
Yeah. I put pretty much everything that I own in, or that I've created in this membership, because it's only $45 a month, and I want people to feel like I am giving them everything they need to take the next step and the next step and the next step. And your intuition is real, and it guides you through whatever it is that you need. And I've created this container of all these different courses. So I've got ones on identity shift, like understanding your identity, and how that one is like so core. So many people watched that episode. I called it a session. I'm sorry. So many people watched that session and they were just like, oh my gosh, like I can be myself. Like when they say be yourself, it sounds like a catchy phrase, but now I feel like I understand what that means. And we go into the astrology of how to find, like, you might be so far off base and you don't feel like yourself and you don't even know what that feels like. So how do I use my astrological markers to go back to my truest identity? And even though it's going to be uncomfortable because I've been shoving myself out of myself for so long, there's another session on career and life purpose and how to find your values. Those are all like the core key sessions. But I also have ones on like rewriting energetic patterns of the nervous system. When I did work on the hippocampus, it was like, oh my gosh, like it was just starting to be, I was just starting out. I was like, I was going to be like a 30-minute session on short-term memory. And I started learning more about the hippocampus and how key it is for us to actually be able to change anything about our lives. That thing we were talking about, I don't know, comes back to the hippocampus and how it doesn't matter if we are not open, the hippocampus is going to shut things out of our lives. Somebody could walk up to your door and hand you $10,000 and you wouldn't see it because if you didn't believe that it was possible. And the hippocampus is that gatekeeper. It also does so many other amazing things. So I ended up recording 2 1-hour sessions instead of one 30-minute session on short-term memory. Because that is so key to our ability to even give ourselves permission to heal. And then I did a vagus nerve session and we rewrote all of the cranial nerves. That one was interesting too, because it's all the stuff in the head and the face and all the nerves that control those things. Yeah. So we had a lot of fun. And then we did one on credit curses. I found, like credit cards have like curses inside the contracts, depending on the card and the card company. And I was trying to figure out whether it was intentional or not intentional, but it's basically like, if you get this card, it will like steal all your money, but it's legal. So it's like, where's my money going? Yeah.
That's fascinating. How did you, so all of those courses sound amazing. Like I'm like, oh, that's cool. I did not know that about the hippocampus. So that's super cool. I actually haven't thought about a lot the brain since I have read, oh, it was like a sci-fi novel that was written in like the 90s and I can't remember what it's called right now. But that's the last time I've really thought about the brain kind of like in sections like that. But so let's go down that rabbit hole about
Okay.
yeah, tell me more. How did you stumble on that?
The hippocampus,
No, I'm sorry.
Google. Oh, the credit
Yes, that's
curses.
amazing. That's great. And that's probably what we should be talking about. But what I really want to know is how did you find this language in the credit card disclaimers?
Oh, it's not inside the language. That's a good question. I should read them. No, I just intuited it. And I woke up one day and it was like this credit card, this specific credit card company brand is doing this. And I was like, okay. And so I just basically, um, so you're familiar with pendulums and muscle testing and stuff like that. So I use
Muscle
muscle
testing,
testing.
no, but pendulums, yes, yeah.
Okay. So muscle testing is like using your body as a pendulum.
Ooh,
So you can
cool.
ask your body questions directly and get direct answers. It is also a key portion of my book too, because I'm like, I want to give you all of the tools. Um, some people have trouble doing their own muscle testing. In that case, pendulums work great too. Pendulums work with the same energy. But anyways, I was asking these questions and what is this? What is going on here? How does this work? What card companies should I be looking out for? And then also, what is the history of credit, which is very interesting. And it's not a very long history. And so I was trying to figure out when curses came into contracts. It's like It's not necessarily in the language, it's like in the energetic signature of the contract. Because whenever you sign any contract, even like your service agreement, you're agreeing to something with your energy as well as um, your physical body, right? Like the only reason it works is because of the energetic. They're not actually putting a chain on you, right? But you're agreeing to something with your energetics. So, what are you agreeing to that isn't in the fine print that can't be enforced by law, but is going to happen anyways, right? And so basically, it's sort of like a parasitic thing inside of the contract. I hope that wasn't too woo woo for you.
Did you say hope it doesn't too woo? No, I'll go all down. I go all the which ways to like whichever. That is fascinating, and I'm actually doing some really like I'm reflecting on that, and I have never tried muscle testing, and I am going to do that because I do think to a certain extent, I intuit from my body and my senses and the other things that are going on all the time. But I have never specifically held space for myself in that way to invite that in the way I would sit with a pendulum, like, so
Mm-hmm.
to do it in such an intentional way, sounds really cool. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like doing some sort of yoga nidra practice a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
where you're running through the body, and or other people might know it as body scans and things like that. But it's still different. It's a different kind of receptivity. I'm excited to try that out. That's great, and that's in the book as well.
It's in the book. And then because muscle testing specifically is such an active practice, I also include videos that come with the book inside of a separate course for free, include everything. Like I don't want anybody to be like, oh, you're gonna this. No, I just want you to have all the tools, and I want it to be in a format that makes sense to see it in. So muscle testing is a very physical thing to do. So there's a video for that, and I have already right now in the free stuff before the book is even released. There is the first course is a love meditation, a heart meditation, and like giving yourself the ability to feel unconditional love without conditions. The second one is a muscle testing video. So it gives you that kind of overview, lets you play with it, all of that.
Awesome. I like that you've included the videos too. That's really cool. So, um, okay, this is kind of like a you take it as it lands question. tell
Sounds
me
exciting.
tell me, like, because your work is both very specific and very expansive. Like there's a lot here. So if you could choose one thing that's a part of your work or that has become a part of your daily life because of your work, like what would it be? This thing that just when you think favorite, like what pops up for you?
Yeah, so the core of everything I do is encased in love. It's about deep, unconditional love, love without conditions, love without strings. There is no reason for you to deserve it. You are enough as you are, and you are worthy of love regardless of what you've done, who you've been, where you came from, what you used to believe, or what you believe now. How you're always enough. You're always enough. And all of this external stuff starts to feel less of a practice of self-worth once you come from a space of internal love. And once you can start to tap into that unconditional love. And I like to say love without conditions because I think when people are programmed for the word unconditional love, there's like a little secret whisper in there that is conditional. And that comes from people who have religious backgrounds, I think, because God, the whole concept is God is love and unconditional love is. But then we've got all this human stuff that happens in religions that we now associate with God and the word unconditional love. And I want to make sure that people are pulling that out and reminding the core of that, which the divine is love. That is true. There are no other explanations for reality other than the divine is love. And this is a divine playground. That's what all of this is. We're not here to be good enough to go somewhere. We're here because we're worthy already, and it's a fun experience for our soul. Sometimes it's not a fun experience for our body.
Yeah,
So if there's one thing that I want to talk about, it's love. That's the core. Anything else is just for funsies.
that is a good main focus and definitely a good favorite thing. I think that is so fulfilling and it goes everywhere. It goes to everything. And it really speaks to you, though. I think one of the things you just said, it really hit me, is that I do think the phrase unconditional love can definitely be related to religious conditioning. And then also, so many people experience what they think somebody is explaining to them, or they're being told or perceived that it's unconditional love, but at the same time what they're experiencing with the person is not unconditional love. And that creates this like tumultuous perception of what it means and then how it impacts your self-worth, because no matter what the dynamic is between the two, it causes pain on both sides. Something is causing pain. So I do think that it does start to live in our bodies and our subconscious and as well too. And for me, unconditional love became real in my own life when I became a mom.
Mm.
Like that
Yeah.
was that was it for me. Like that was definitely a big pivotal moment. And um another one that was really interesting, and I haven't thought about this for a while, but if I think of another major turn point of understanding unconditional love, it was having a second child and then being like, okay, you're both very different and I love both of you unconditionally. And like, what does that mean? And how does that work? And then in a like different, but smaller scale, having like getting a second dog and like feeling like mapping these same feelings that I'm like, okay, I have two kids and now I'm like kind of aware of what it's like to have two of something that you love, because I had never had two dogs before. And had already gone through the experience of having two kids. I it was a whole other understanding of unconditional love. And of course, like my dogs are rescues, so that's
Mm.
a unconditional love is a big part of being a rescue owner to me. And i think I think if we could all unentrap ourselves from these connotations, these negative connotations that unconditional love can have, and spend more time in that space, like you're describing, you're like, it's all about the love, that so many other things could more easily fall into place.
Yes. And I do want to be clear about the difference between the potential of human love versus the potential of divine unconditional love.
Mm,
No human can meet that. No, by themselves, no human can meet all of your needs. By
yeah.
themselves, no human can make you feel like you're good enough. No external version of humanness can do that. That is not why we're here. It is entirely possible and likely that different aspects of your needs can be met through multiple people, and to create this human experience in your body externally of unconditional love, right? That's why we have friends and a partner and family and a dog and kids, right? All of those together can give you different flavors of that. The minute we put too much pressure on one single person to be our everything is the minute we start to crumble both that person and us, because now we've taken our value and put it in somebody else, and it's just too heavy for them to handle. They can't handle that. They're only human. So let them be human with human things and get your unconditional love from source. There is no other way to have unconditional love. I hope that helped too.
That's a really good point. That what we experience as unconditional love as humans is different than a divine, universal, deity related love, for sure. It's along the path, and I think we can experience as a human, and I also think we can bop off from it. When we have those
Yeah.
mystical moments and we feel like one with a divine source, for sure. It always gets me because I'm always like, I don't get it. I was just in this beautiful energy of love and like feeling amazing and like feeling loved myself. And then all of a sudden I'm like, get your shoes on, let's go.
Mhm.
And like that just, it's such, I'm like, how can I be both? And I think, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Megan Watterson's work. She's a feminist theologian, and a lot of her work originated from studying the Gospel of Mary Magdalene,
Mhm.
and just really, really fascinating and really healing for me as for someone who grew up in a Catholic background. And Megan really brings it back to the early times of Christianity. And one of the big things she speaks to in her work is the how that we're all both, a divine being and a human, and it's
Yes.
being both. And when I every time I'm in a moment in that where I like, let's say I finished meditating at my altar or something, and then all of a sudden I find myself downstairs getting ready for dinner or whatever it is, and being like, can you please just put your backpack away? I use my kids as an example in here because I always feel a lot of pressure and judgment to be like always the best I can, but then the humanness comes out when you're speaking to them and stuff. So to go have like this switch that flips to being like divine connection, super just basic human, like,
Yes.
and I think navigating that is what is so amazing about this experience, and getting to have both. It just brings, I don't want to say balance, but like a harmony of sorts. Like you don't get too stuck in one way or the other. You need to be fluid and both, and also compassionate with yourself when you're very basic human.
Yes. Yes. There are so many times when we only operate we draw a line here at the heart, and we either only operate from the upper chakras or the lower chakras. And having that full integration, and going, I accept my divine nature even while I'm taking a dump, right? Like that's part of life, you know?
Yeah.
I accept my divineness in this moment of me taking this very human action. And our three-dimensional mind wants to kind of take control and say, no, like this is how it is. But once you start to do more of this work, it starts to soften, and it doesn't try to control everything. And then you can play with it. Then you have a lot more wiggle room and ability to do that. And bringing in that divine piece is sort of like a lubricant, so to speak, for that softness, I suppose. One of the best things I've heard people say is we are divine beings having a human experience, right? Which sounds like a thing that is a great saying, but what does it mean? It means that your three-dimensional brain only understands three dimensions. And we have this crazy thing called a soul that understands infinity. And so when the soul and the drive and the desire and the passion comes through, then it forgets about human limitations. And when the brain takes over, then the brain forgets about infinity and creativity and beauty. Having both is a practice, yes. that's why we're doing this, right? That's the
Yeah.
whole reason we're doing this.
Yeah, for sure. And it requires that openness and a curiosity and a willing to be in discomfort, and accepting that we don't have it all figured out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but let's get practical, because I think that a lot of people are probably glazing over at this point.
Yeah, bring us home. So tell us something you want to leave with everybody with today, because I am all about, exploring expansive possibilities, not putting anybody in a box, allowing everybody to express and have their own experience without judgment. um, all the woo, but I'm also somebody that's like, okay, let's make everything we just talked about something tangible and practical that people can take away. So what do you want to leave us with?
Yeah. So if anyone's like, I don't even know where to start with the identity work, right? Who am I? What am I doing here? Accepting I don't know. That's the first thing. And then I'm sorry, I really have to talk about my podcast for a second, because everything keeps going beep beep beep. Talk about this, because what I'm working with, what it's called, is the Feminine Alchemy podcast. And we're working with the divine feminine, a lot of part of this westernization of culture and colonization and things that are like people are really mad about right now. It's for a reason, and it's because the divine feminine was pushed down and suffered as a result of that. And part of the divine feminine has to do with the earth, has to do with the earth's people, right? And the people who became in the culture of being one with the earth, and that's important to them. But Western culture doesn't do that, right? Western culture separates. So, because the masculine separates, the feminine unites, right? The feminine transforms. So, what we're doing here is we're reawakening the feminine. It's really uncomfortable because now we have to come up, and because the feminine is the deep dark too. When we're dealing with these feminine issues, we're dealing with more than just being adorable and cute and like momming it up and, getting your Starbucks or whatever. We're dealing with sacred feminine rage. We're dealing with the anger and the grief of the active removal of a goddess from the Old Testament. We are dealing with missing pieces to our existence. It's really heavy work, and that's why it's like super crazy right now. So what you can do is take the time to work on your own shadow work on your own feminine work. How can I be more feminine in this and not just adorable, not just like let it go and whatever, but how can I use sacred feminine rage? How can I use my connection to the earth? How do I use my power? And when we start to ask these questions and start to take care of these subconscious programmings, when we start to do all of these things, then we awaken our own power within ourselves. And then we can take even better action than if we were just screaming into the wind. And I think a lot of people feel like they're screaming into the wind. But this process is an additive process. And if everybody who's angry at what's out there just took the time to figure out what's in here first, you'd be so much more powerful. So much more able to see what things are and feel like you can take the actions to change them. I feel powerless sometimes too. And there are things that are outside of our power. And accepting that is really, really hard. I don't even know how to say that in any other way because the words are not even right for that. Accepting the fact that there are forces outside of you that can impact your life and you have no control over it is very scary. So taking the things that make your power stronger so that way the outside forces don't seem as scary can really help take that action. So things like journaling, meditating, digging up old stuff, finding out about your 5-year-old grief that you can just chuck out the window. Those are the things, like I said, that changed everything. One little tiny spot, that changed everything. You might find something that will change everything for you, but you just haven't found it yet. So you can do it. And the reason I brought up the Feminine Alchemy podcast is because those are all episodes that we talked about. We're pulling no punches with this podcast. Anything real is going on there. We are a little bit controversial. We are a lot controversial. And but we're also very gentle. We're not very mean about it either.
I like that. I think being able to be controversial or contrarian, but also be gentle is like a really great way to be in the space in this world that we're in today, because we are experiencing so many complex and nuanced situations that we all are trying to either contribute to care or receive care from. It's a lot. So, and unless we, look under stones and look for hidden meaning or mysteries, it won't come out. So it sounds like that's exactly what you're doing in your podcast.
Yep.
It's great. Thank you so much for coming on, Jaye Anne. This has been a wonderful conversation, and I'm really excited to see more about what you're doing, and I'm really excited for this book that you've got coming out. For everybody that's watching or listening, I'm putting the notes, I'm sorry, in the show notes, I'll put how to connect with Jaye Anne below. And I wish you all luck as you begin your identity work, as Jaye Anne has suggested, and definitely keep an eye out for the book.
Thank you.